Do you want to up your game as a blind or visually impaired sports fan? Exclusively for Eyes Free Sports listeners, we've been able to extend One Court's pre-order for their at-home device. So act now before it's too late. Visit onecourt.io/preorder. That's onecourt.io/preorder and use promo code EYES, EYES, at checkout for a free month of their all-access subscription. Howdy, and thanks for checking out episode 173 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. This is your host, Greg Lindberg. Here on this episode, we are joined by a young lady from the great state of Massachusetts, and she has already become an accomplished blind fencer and has also been very instrumental in helping grow the sport of blind fencing here in the U.S. In addition, she is a visually impaired mom and is also quite involved in NFB, the National Federation of the Blind. So why don't we go ahead now and get fencing toward episode 173 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. All right, so joining me here on this episode of the podcast, I'd like to welcome Stephanie Valdez. And Stephanie is a very accomplished blind fencer and has been very instrumental in bringing blind fencing to the U.S. and just helping grow the sport. Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Greg. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today.
Absolutely. This is really exciting. This is the first time we've talked about blind fencing on this podcast, which I've done quite a few episodes by now. So really excited to get into the sport and hopefully kind of raise awareness about a new sport for some folks to check out.
Most definitely. Yeah, it's needed.
For sure. Yep. So why don't we just kind of rewind the tape, I like to say, and just go back to your early years and just tell us about where you were born and your formative years, Stephanie.
Sure. That's a little all over the place. So I was actually born in Massachusetts, but I grew up and lived my entire life in Puerto Rico. Both of my parents, my sibling, everybody's from Puerto Rico. I was just a little bit of an oops because my mom's family lives in Boston. So we were over here. I was born here in Massachusetts, but in a couple of months after I was born, I went back to Puerto Rico and didn't come back to the U.S. to live. I did come, summers, winters, kind of vacations to be with my aunts, but didn't come back until I was 18. To actually live in Massachusetts again. Gotcha.
Wow. Interesting. I have had a few guests on that are from Puerto Rico and that have been involved in some blind sports down there. So I know it's, not quite maybe on the agenda here, but I was curious just kind of your perspective on blind sports in Puerto Rico.
They've been pretty active. I'm glad. I'm happy to hear that it's gone all the way to Puerto Rico and we're not isolated in that sense. I know they have a couple of sports. They don't have blind fencing yet, and that's one of my goals to eventually be able to make that connection over there with the athletes and with the Association of Blind Athletes to be able to expand.
Nice. Yeah. I know there are some efforts in beat baseball and goalball, but yeah, would be awesome to see fencing added to that repertoire as well, right? At some point.
Definitely.
So as far as your visual impairment, tell me about your eye condition.
So my eye condition has a very long name because it's brain injury, basically. The short term, optical nerve atrophy, but it was damaged by a brain injury. So that happened over the course of, I want to say like a year or so. I was 17 when everything started. I lost my vision in June 2013, which I was just graduating high school about 10 days, 2 weeks about after graduating high school. Was with the point where everything happened and it was in a sense official that my vision loss was just going to stay that way. So I had a trauma that is still unknown that caused an internal bleeding in my brain, and that because we didn't catch it on time, it caused a clot to form at the back of my head that was preventing the spinal fluids from getting out. And the pressure from those spinal fluids were affecting my motor system, not just my eyesight, but just entirely. Like I had moments where I couldn't even feel my legs and couldn't walk. So that happened my high school year. We decided to finish high school because I was like about a couple of weeks away from just getting all of that done and come here to Massachusetts since we have family here and they have pretty good hospitals to take a second opinion, but we didn't know that the pressure of the plane was actually going to make the damage to my optical nerve permanent. So they were able to kind of fix everything else, get rid of the clot, drain those spinal fluids, and all of the brain situation get it under control. But the pressure of the plane made the damage to the optical nerve permanent.
Wow. Yeah, definitely an unusual situation. And so as far as your current level of vision, how would you kind of describe your vision right now?
So I have light perception on my right eye. And then my left eye, I like to describe it like that, like a blur. Like I can see things around me, but I can't quite define them. It doesn't focus. It's like constantly out of focus. And that's for big objects. I can't see anything too small, too thin, too many details. And I will say about 10 feet in front of me, nothing farther than that.
Right. Gotcha. In terms of education and career achievements or any kind of career goals, anything you'd like to mention on those fronts?
So I do have, when I lost my vision, I like to say I was that stereotypical ignorant sighted person that thought blind people couldn't do anything. So I kind of carried that into my studies. So before I went blind, like I said, it was like graduating high school. I was enrolled in the University of Puerto Rico with the hopes of pursuing criminal justice major with a concentration in forensic psychology. After losing my vision, I completely dropped that. That was, for me in that moment, was out of the question. And I wanted to do culinary arts, but I getting a lot of pushback. Like, how are you going to move in the kitchen? It's too many things. It's fast paced. We can allow, like the school were telling me, well, we allow it if you have an assistant that can get everything for you and you can just stay in front of the stove, which that was not what I wanted. So I kept looking into different things. I have always liked languages and interpreting and that. So I went on that route and did a bachelor's in French. The intention was to do some certification for interpreting, translating kind of thing. When I graduated college with my undergrad, I had a job offer that is completely unrelated to my major. It was a development position, but it was really good pay and benefits. So I took it and have been there ever since. Now, since I graduated college in 2022, a lot of things has happened, and I am actually considering going back to school for getting my master's as a TBI and going on that path of teaching blind kids. Now,
oh wow,
that's probably going to happen, but I still have in the back of my head and would love at some point to actually go back to school and get that forensic psychology degree, just to kind of bring everything around full circle.
Yeah, that sounds like a fascinating field. So, definitely wish you luck on hopefully being able to pursue that in some aspect.
Thank you.
And yeah, it sounds like you're probably fluent then in multiple languages, right?
I speak Spanish and English fluently. I have conversational French. I wouldn't say I'm fluent, but I can defend myself in French, and have picked a little words here and there from many other languages.
Right. Very cool. I know you are a mom as well. Just talk to me about kind of being a visually impaired mom. Any funny stories? Anything you want to mention about being a visually impaired mom?
Oh my God. So yeah, I have two boys. I think it's worth mentioning that they're both boys, 5 and 6. So there's a lot of fights there.
Sure.
And they get along. It is funny because they do get along wonderfully, and they're wonderful kids in the sense that I feel like they are much more calm than the typical 5, 6-year-old. But there is that, the one time they love each other and they're hugging and kissing, and the next time they're just grabbing each other by the hair. So it's definitely a full-time job. In terms of like funny stories, I do want to say my 6-year-old, they're both sighted. They don't have any visual impairment due to the fact, my vision loss was to a brain injury.
Sure.
But my oldest, my 6-year-old, actually really enjoys the feel of Braille. He thinks it's funny because it tickles, like he says. So every time I'm reading something in Braille or he sees Braille around, he just goes and like feels it all around and just starts giggling. I have a feeling that eventually he's gonna, once he understands more what is it about, he would like to like learn it, even if he's not blind or visually impaired. But it's definitely interesting in the ways of a blind parent takes information because, we can't see them. We can't know exactly what they're doing, but we also have our little tricks and other ways of knowing. One of my favorite stories is like, I like to bake a lot.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah.
most of the time it's just bake and give away because I like the baking, not necessarily eating the baked goods.
Yep.
Um,
All the carbs.
yeah,
Yep.
so I was baking muffins and I had them on a cooling rack on top of the stove, cooling down. I was by my desk, which is pretty close to the kitchen, and I could hear my kids whispering to each other, trying to go past me. And every time I heard them right by my desk, I will turn around because, in their heads are thinking, well, she can't see me if we're quiet. We can get around her. So every time they
Right.
came by my side, I will turn around the chair and be like, what? And they would just run screaming. So they did that about 2 times. By the third time, I turn around, I'm like, what are you guys trying to do? And they just came around and were like, well, we're actually trying to get to the muffins. And I'm like,
They
if you
admitted it.
ask, I
Yep.
can give you a muffin. That's not the problem. Like, you don't need to sneak around to try to get muffins. So yeah, they did get the muffin. I went, got up and gave them each one muffin. But it was really funny that they had that idea of like, well, we're just going to walk right past her because she can't really see us. So we can go grab muffins.
Right. Right. That is funny. Yeah. And I know I have heard of like blind parents putting like bells on their
Yeah.
kids' shoes, or any like strategies or different tricks that you've used to kind of, identify your kids or whatnot.
So usually like very, very bright shirts in very specific colors. And I do different colors for each one of them because even though they're a year apart, they are about the same height.
Right.
So it'd be like neon colors that I can clearly see and know those are my kids. But most of the time, actually, I have, in a sense, like, I don't want to say train, but it is kind of what it is. They know that they're starting to understand I can't see. So, like, they know if I said, where are you? Like, I called their names. And as soon as I did call their names, they got to say here. So I am able to actually keep track pretty easily when we're in open spaces because they have really adopted that very well without resistance. So I don't have to reinforce it. As soon as I say either of the names, they say here and I know exactly what they are. And just staying not too far, like instead of if we're in a playground, instead of just sitting to the side, I try to engage as much as possible in whatever they're doing, even if it involves climbing weird structures and going down the slides. But I try to kind of incorporate and be part of the game so that it's easier for me to track what they're doing and where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's definitely a smarter kind of approach to it, I feel like. So then turning our attention over to sports and fencing specifically. So I am curious, did you do fencing at all when you had vision?
No, I saw very, very little of fencing. I want to say that before I started doing blind fencing, I knew the concept of fencing. I knew that it was something to do with swords, but that was about it. And I was a pretty active
Right.
athlete in high school. I did volleyball, I did track and field, I did softball, but fencing was one of those that I was like, oh yeah, I've seen it at some point in some TV show or movie, but don't know exactly what it is.
I see. Yeah. And then so I'm curious, how did you kind of discover that blind fencing was a thing and this actually existed?
So it was actually pretty quickly after losing my vision. So I lost my vision June 2013, and I went to a training center in Massachusetts January of the following year, so January 2014. And it was part of the program, not to like not really the competitive side of it or the sword fighting part of it, but just the foundation of footwork and movement and drills. You had it twice a week during the program, helping improve balance, endurance, orientation, and a lot of the coordination that are skills that you need to do for mobility and daily skills. So that's actually how I came around. I think, it was, I want to say like a 12-week program. And during those 12 weeks, we probably fenced like only a handful of times, like actually partner up and fence.
I see. And what's the name of that training center?
Care Center for the Blind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very well known.
Yeah, it's where actually I found out later on when I got more involved with blind fencing, it is where blind fencing originated.
I see. Interesting. So they've been doing it for a couple of decades then, if I recall hearing.
Yes, about close to like 40 years.
Wow. Yeah. So maybe back in the 80s, late 80s or so, kind of got started there.
Yeah, they started as a way to help blind veterans gain back some of those skills that I was just saying about, the balance and the coordination and all of those. That's why it was mostly drills and footwork rather than the actual sword fighting.
Right. Got you. So for those who are not familiar with just fencing in general, if you just want to explain how fencing works and then the adaptations of, fencing for the blind and visually impaired.
Of course. So fencing in general, it's considered a martial art, and it is sword fighting. There's 3 different weapons in the sports, which are epee, foil, and saber. And depending on the sword, depends on the target and the rules they apply to each weapon. So like really quickly, epee is the entire body, any hit counts, and the point is to hit your opponent with the blade, with the weapon. So foil, you can only hit torso, that's front and back. And then saber, you can hit anywhere from waist up. So only the legs don't count. You start from 4 meters apart, and you can only go, technically you can only go back and forward. You're on a strip, and you're keeping that distance until you're attacking your opponent to hit with the sword. And it is the method uses electric, so the weapon is not sharp in any way. The tip is actually a button that when you hit your opponent, it presses down on that spring and it sends the signal to the cable, the body cord that you have connected to it, to a machine, and it beeps and lights up with the color of the person that got the point. So usually it's like green and red. One person is green, the other one is red. And that tells the referee who got the point, because it's a very, very fast sport. So a 5-point bout, which it's the first one, the rules are the first one to get to 5 or 3 minutes. So the bout to 5 point is not going to last more than 3 minutes. If it's, let's say 3-4 and the 3 minutes are up, then whoever got the highest score wins. There's actually not many adaptations to blind fencing, at least in the US. Currently, there is 2 different sets of rules, US and European rules. Here in the US, how we do it, it's that we are using the same metal strip. But instead of starting from 4 meters apart, we start with the tip of the blades touching. And I will say that's probably like about 3 to 3.5 meters apart. It's not that much of a difference, but it is a big difference in terms of orientation and knowing where your opponent is from the start. The strip that is used for fencing already has like raised edges because of how they need to bolt it to the floor. And we found out that maybe if you just go to a club and start doing it right now, it might not be as easy to feel because you're just new. But as you progress and you start training, it's very easy to know when you're stepping on that edge. So that's why there's no additional, material making those more visible. And we wanted to keep it as easy as possible for clubs to be able to open their doors for blind fencing. The more adaptations, the more materials, the more expensive you make it to adapt, the less clubs are going to be willing to participate. So everybody has to be blindfolded in order to fence. And that's about the difference between the two. There is a 2-meter warning line that, because obviously we can't see when we're on that line, the referee stops you and resets the person who crossed the 2-meter line with their back foot on that line, and then resumes the match just to give you the warning, hey, you're about to step off the strip. Because once you step off the strip, the rules say that you reset the bout, but you're giving up a point to your opponent. So you want to know when you're in those 2 meters at the back of the strip so that you're not giving free points to your opponent. In a regular fencing match, the referee would just verbally say 2-meter warning. And then in blind fencing, since you're not able to gauge how much of that 2 meters you went back, that's why we're resetting at the start. So you know exactly you have 2 meters back. Other than that, we use the same equipment. With the addition of the blindfolds, we use the same rules. With those exceptions, actually, the rule book, which is online, literally starts with blind fencing follows all the rules of USA fencing with the following exceptions. So anything that is not on that document, it means we're just going to follow whatever is written for fencing in general. The only other difference is that with blind fencing, we only use one of the 3 weapons. We do épée, which is the one that you can hit any part of the body. We have not expanded into foil and saber because we want to first get everything settled and down and figure it out with one weapon because they are very different. So it will be very overwhelming to try to figure out 3 completely different weapons at the same time.
Right. Definitely makes sense. And in terms of the uniform, if you want to call it a uniform, I know the other day you were describing just, what blind fencers do wear and obviously fencers in general.
Yes. So the fencing gear, you get pants that are very similar to, I would say, like football or baseball in the sense, there's those pants that go right under your knee. They're high-waisted, so they go up to your ribs, and they have suspenders. And then on top of that, you get a chest protector. And then over that chest protector, you have a underarm, which is, I want to say, like half a t-shirt that goes over the arm of your weapon. And then you grab with whatever hand. I'm right-handed, so my right hand will have my body cord. I will be holding on to my body cord on my right hand to then put my jacket on so that body cord runs from my hand to my back from the inside of my jacket. Then you have high knee socks, like many sports. And there is fencing shoes. They're not a must. They're gonna be more comfortable, and actually there is people that don't necessarily use specific fencing shoes because they say that other shoes are more comfortable for them while fencing. It's just the way the shoe is made. There's nothing like really specific about them that you can say, okay, this is similar enough that it works, basically.
Right.
And obviously the mask, which is one of the important things, you have a mask that it's metal in the front. So everything that is your face, it's covered by metal. And then towards the back, it's fabric, like very thick fabric, like the rest of the uniform. It is a mask because it does not cover the back of your head. So it's really important. And that you don't expose the back of your head. And there's a lot of rules in place for that not to happen. And then you obviously have your weapon, and you only use glove on the hand that you use your weapon with. So in my case, I only have a right-handed glove. My left hand does not have a glove.
Right. Gotcha. And I am curious too, in terms of wearing the blindfold and then having the mask on, is it kind of uncomfortable, kind of having both, or how does that kind of fit?
It's not that uncomfortable because there's a lot of space. I don't want to say a lot, but there's enough space in between the mask and your face to accommodate those. Because it's metal, it doesn't go right against your face.
I see.
We are currently using in the US the mindfolds, which are those blindfolds that are very commonly used in like training centers. The have like a hard shell, but like the foam inside. Because we have found that those are the best to really block out everything. Those are under revision in terms of as a general, because we do have to have them regulated somehow. So the idea right now is to kind of have 3 different options. And that comes from other countries that are using other things. For example, I know France, Italy are using these kind of glasses, I want to say. They're like blindfolds, but the front look like glasses, very like thick plastic.
I see.
Now, Japan is using swimming goggles that are being blacked out.
Interesting.
Yes. So they do want to have, okay, like, let's regulate this 3 so that the athlete themselves can use whatever is more comfortable for them, because they do acknowledge, a lot of blind people does have brain injuries that will factor into what's more comfortable. So the idea is like eventually to have like at least 3 different ways of blindfolding the fencers, so like you can choose which one you want to use.
Right. Gotcha. So I understand that you have competed in some tournaments as far as blind fencing, both in the U.S. and internationally, from what I understand. Anything you want to mention in terms of achievements?
this is last August. I was on a tournament here in Boston. We had about, I want to say, 12 to 14 fencers. It was a mixed competition. So there is three ways. Well, in blind fencing, I guess there's two. But usually fencing is divided into gender and age groups. Now, we are not doing the age groups because there's not enough fencers. We are divided by gender. There is such a thing as a mixed event, which means everybody is fencing each other, male and female. There is what is called a combined event, which is where the ages are combined within the two genders. And then there is a mixed combined, which is everybody against everybody. So our event last August here in Boston was a mixed event. So because it was only 14 fencers, we did not divide it in between men and women. We all just fenced each other. I am proud to say that I did actually got that gold medal on that tournament. So I was able to beat everybody else that was present there, which wasn't an easy thing. I mean, they were really, really good fencers, and not necessarily from my club, but we met some other good fencers from New York, from Connecticut, that we were like, oh my God, these are really good people. The silver medalist was actually from New York and Rochester Club. We are having a tournament again in the United States, not in Boston. It's going to be up in Rochester in about 2 weeks, like the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of August. And it is also going to be, again, a mixed event. We are trying to get more tournaments going in US, but there might be a possibility for one in April, which is going to be an international one back here in Boston. And internationally, I just this past March went to France with 3 more people from the United States, 3 more fencers. It was 2 and 2, two girls, 2 boys. We all went to Marseille, France to compete over there. And there was, including United States, there was 5 countries. It was Italy, France, Spain, United States, and Switzerland. That event was a little bit, I would say, double the amount of people that we had here in Boston. Only on the women's competition, it was 14 of us. And I believe there was like about 16 guys there from all over. I ended up placing 5th in individual competition in that competition. And me and my teammate got 3rd place in the team competition.
Wow, nice. So did you actually get a bronze medal for that?
Not in the Marseille, actually. That was a little interesting. Apparently, they had budget restraints, which was a little sad, but we're okay. We're fine. At least we got the recognition.
It's in the history books. Yep.
Exactly.
Wow. And would you say that was a much more competitive, tournament or competition to the one that you competed in Boston?
I would say yes. There was, like I said, it was more people. There was, I guess, when we did do ours in Boston, there was an air of like, let's try to figure things out and let's have fun.
Right.
So it was more friendly competition. Now, when we were in France, it was like, we're here down in business. Like everybody, we did had dinner together every night, like all of the coaches, athletes, referees, everybody. And yeah, everybody mingled and everything. But when we were at the competition, when we were like on the strips, it was like everybody on their corner. Like, we're serious about this.
Yep.
So it was definitely more competitive.
Wow. Yeah. Was that your first time visiting France?
Yes, it was actually, even though I did study French, but I have not been to France. I've been to other French-speaking countries, but not France itself.
Right. Nice. So yeah, let's talk a little more about just in terms of blind fencing here in the U.S. I know you've been instrumental in, I believe it's called USA Blind Fencing, this organization that recently started. Just kind of talk to me about your role with that and just kind of in general, what the current state of blind fencing is as far as clubs around the country and those growth efforts.
Yes. So I got involved in 2024 with a tour, which was their goal is to bring the blind fencing into the Paralympics. It is already a Paralympic sport for wheelchair. It's referred as seated fencing. So they said, if seated fencing is already a thing, it shouldn't be too hard to bring blind fencing into the fold. So they created a task force to start working in this and got involved. The task force was with USFCA, United States Fencing Coach Association. So because it was a coach associations, they were taking it more from the perspective of like, let's create courses so that coaches can learn how to coach blind fencing and they can open their clubs up to blind fencing. But we still were having that and how do we get the fencers? And USFCA was like, well, we technically can't do much about that because we're only supposed to deal with coaches. So we talked to USA Fencing and they say, there's USA Fencing, there's USA Para Fencing, which currently it's only seated fencing. And they say, they were having a lot in their plate and they say, we have a lot on our plate, but if you guys want to take it on, you guys want to develop it, we endorse it. We'll be right there with you. We'll be helping you in any way we can, but we cannot take resources and people away right now to set aside for that. So that's where USA Blind Fencing got created this past January. It is a mix. It's primarily blind athletes because one thing that we did have clear in the United States is we wanted this movement to be guided by blind athletes with the assistance of coaches, with the assistance of referees and people who know about the fencing, but guided primarily by the blind people who understand blindness the best. So primarily there is fencers, there's a retired coach as part of our group and an assistant coach from California. And our goal is to expand the knowledge of blind fencing and bring more access to blind fencing throughout the United States so that in turn, we can start getting more tournaments on the play. We can start getting enough events to start ranking and qualifying for eventually having getting ready for that big. Whenever it's in the Paralympics, we have everything in place to rank and get a U.S. team out to the Paralympics.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That's, getting in the Paralympic Games. I know in terms of beat baseball, there's been talk, or blind baseball, or hockey, to get more blind sports in the Paralympics just in general is such a great effort and great thing.
Yes. And I want to say blind fencing, it's in a good path right now to accomplish that. I don't know if it will be accomplished for 2028, which is around the corner, but I can say that I'm 95% sure that will be at least in the next 2032 Paralympics. In terms of how is it right now in the US, we do have a couple of clubs, not enough, and that's why we want to expand and see where the blind athletes are interested in blind fencing, so we can reach out. We have clubs in California, Texas, Colorado, New York, Vermont, and Massachusetts that I can think off the top of my head. California is in San Francisco. There is one that it's on the works to start a program soon at Davis. Here in Massachusetts, there's one in Boston. There's one towards the western part of Massachusetts. New York has two different ones in Rochester. The Vermont one, we're not, I think it's in Burlington, but I'm not 100% sure on that one because they keep very little contact. There's one in Denver, Colorado, in Austin, Houston, and the Valley in Texas.
3 of them. Yeah. Texas has got it going on. Like we talked about the other day in general about blind sports, whether it's beat baseball, goalball, blind soccer.
Yes. Yeah.
They're rolling.
They get it all. Which is great. I mean, and to be honest, it is a much bigger state than some of the others. So it's it makes more sense that you have more around to get to everybody.
Sure. Yeah. And then if someone were interested in trying to start a club or at least kind of maybe get exposed to trying blind fencing, what kind of advice or recommendations would you have for somebody?
So usually the best approach is to see what's the fencing club nearest to you. There is a crazy amount of fencing clubs around. And that is something that is not well known. It's you think there's not a single fencing club, then you Google it and it's 3 right there next to you.
Right.
doing that initial approach, if you think, you're somebody who's shy or doesn't go well, or for any reason you don't feel comfortable doing that approach yourself of like, hey, I'm interested in starting fencing. There is such thing as blind fencing. USA Blind Fencing can help with that. In doing that initial reach out to the clubs, we are reaching out actually to clubs who already have seated fencing, because they're already dealing with the pair fencing part of it, to try to get them to also offer blind fencing. But it is hard to know, because we don't want to reach out to clubs. The organization doesn't want to reach out to clubs and be like, oh, open your doors to blind fencing, and then have no blind fencers show up. So it's easier if the fencers or the blind athletes reach out to the clubs and see if they're open to the idea of teaching blind fencing, and always mention, it's not something that you need to do alone. There is USA Blind Fencing. There is resources. There's people that can help you set up and understand what blind fencing is about. I just need an open mind to be able to work with me as a blind fencer.
For sure. Yeah, definitely makes sense. And then just to wrap up the fencing piece, just in general, Stephanie, what would you say you enjoy most about fencing and getting out there and competing?
I want to say stabbing, but that's not very very nice. No, it is a great sport. I say it's very fast paced, very adrenaline driven, and there's so much focus, so much going on. You hop onto that strip and you forget the entire rest of the world. You're only focused on what's going on there, and it's very satisfying, a full body exercise. There's so many things actually I like about it. But I like that sense of like being able to drop everything for a second and focus on something that I enjoy. It does wonders for stress. Not only because you're stabbing people, but because you're focusing on so many, there's so much to focus on when you're doing fencing. You need to be aware of so many different things that there's no space for worries or work or problems or anything else.
Yeah, such a great point. I understand that you are involved in the NFB, in the National Federation of the Blind, if you want to talk about that.
Yes, I'm quite involved. Let me start with like my state. I am in Massachusetts. I am part of our North Shore chapter. I'm also part of the board of Massachusetts as a board member, and coordinate the BELL program, Braille Enrichment for Literacy and Learning Academy. And I'm currently the president of the Massachusetts Parents of Blind Children. And I say currently because I'm doing so many things that I might be stepping down of that one. I have too many hats currently, because that's, like I said, that's state, then national. At the national level, I am an IEP advocate, which is one of the works that I love the most, working with NFBs, being able to help parents with their child's IEPs. And I just got elected this past national convention as the vice president of the Sports and Rec Division.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Congrats.
Thank you.
And Richie Flores, my buddy, I believe, is still president, right?
He is very much, yep.
Yep, he's a good guy. Oh, yeah. Nice. And then I know you did mention baking. Any other hobbies? Any other sports that you've tried or would like to try aside from fencing?
I want to say, I do want to try a couple, but the one that comes to my mind every single time I get asked this question, because I think it's the one that I most want to try, it's archery. I don't currently do other sports other than running, but I don't really compete or do anything with it. So I think about it more as a workout than a sport. I do it occasionally, do a 5K, but I don't even train for those. So it's definitely more fun than a sport.
For sure. Yep. I can relate on the running thing. I've, kind of walked/run a few 5Ks,
yes.
And I'm definitely not an endurance athlete though, and probably have no desire to be one. So.
In the part of endurance, I would say I am definitely an endurance athlete.
Sure.
Even though fencing is like a 3-minute bout, you wouldn't believe the type of stamina that you need in order to do 3 minutes fencing.
Yeah, that's a great point. As you think of, a marathon, several hours, but
Yes.
fencing is so short, but in those, like you said, within those few minutes, it's so intense.
And it's also, I guess, the position, you're basically on a squat the entire time. You're doing a
Right.
perpetual squat while trying to stab somebody else. So it does takes a lot. So I would say, yeah, probably I'm on an endurance, but not in terms of marathons. I guess the more
sure.
fast paced. Now you mentioned I did mention the baking as hobbies. I do like baking and cooking. And my other hobby, actually, it's skincare, making skincare products from natural ingredients.
Oh, cool. Very cool. That's different. Yeah. So you actually do sell those?
I used to. I mean, I still do. I am pausing my website for a while because I have a lot going on right now and can't really do as much as I would like to. But I did, have a couple. It's like lip balm, lotion bars. Everything is anhydrous, which means there's no water. It's oil based. But there was like massage oils and like scrubs. There's a bunch of things.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so before we wrap up here officially, I did want to give you the chance, Stephanie, to mention contact info, especially if folks have questions about blind fencing or maybe looking for connections or resources. How can they reach out?
Yes, definitely. So I will encourage everybody to look for USA Blind Fencing on Facebook. There is a Facebook page. And there's not much getting posted there because a lot of the stuff it's like on the works, but any announcements, any new things that are happening with the sport will be posted there. So that's a great way to follow what's been going on and what's happening. For example, the tournament that is going to happen in just a couple of weeks has been posted there, and we will keep updating, with like more information of how that went on the Facebook. Now it's more of like there is the website as well, usablindfencing.org, and there's a contact form there that you can fill out if you have any questions, if you want to get contacted, or any of that. Or you can also send an email to communications@usablindfencing.org. I will say that's the easiest way to get your questions answered about blind fencing or anything else that the people want to know about the sport.
Excellent. And as always, I'll include all that info in the show notes for everyone as well. All right. Well, again, our guest on this episode has been Stephanie Valdez. And Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed the conversation. Congrats on your achievements in blind fencing already. I know there's more to come, and good luck at the tournament coming up here in Rochester soon.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Alrighty. To hear more episodes of the Eyes Free Sports podcast and to subscribe, search for Eyes Free Sports on your favorite podcast platform or visit eyesfreesports.com. Be sure to follow the Eyes Free Sports podcast at facebook.com/eyesfreesports and on Twitter @eyesfreesports.